It does feel like we've taken the best of what, our strengths and what we've done before, but there feels, feels like a new era exactly, and hopefully we won't. This one hasn't even come out yet, but hopefully it won't be as long for new music. I think we feel a bit reinvigorated, and we had such an amazing time in the studio with this that and we've made loads of records and worked with great people over the years, and but this just felt with Fraser like something had changed, a shift, and obviously lineup change, and there's so many things happening and going on, and yeah, I don't know. I think we've maybe in some, we honour our past deeply, but this does feel new.
Is that because, do you think there was a period of time of what would have been about 5 years between this and the last, and what's gone in between, or you've lived a life, you've maybe been Snow Patrol, but then just pieces in between?
It's certainly a factor. I mean, we're all constantly changing, so I think we're different people. I have a son now, family. Things are, there's lots of things that go on in life that change, and I think they all, even if they don't directly affect how you make a record, maybe in a sort of technical sense,
sure,
they do affect your relationship to it, I think. And certainly for me, like kind of experiencing this now, having a family, and my son has been to his first couple of shows and seeing his kind of joy and what's happening.
How old is he?
He's nearly 4, and so I think he was like, this is what the hell you do, but it's just there's so many things that change. So yeah, life happens, as you say.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just you're making it at the right time, and that felt like that, with Fraser. I keep mentioning him because we just his attitude to recording, it just everything seemed to gel and connect really. It sounds cliche, but really, really quickly and easily, which doesn't always happen, and it doesn't mean there isn't challenges and things that you try to maybe struggle with, or that's just not quite right, and that's part of making albums. But it was a joy with him.
How did that come about with him? Because you've done a few records now with Jackknife, haven't you?
Yeah.
So how did the Fraser thing happen?
It was actually Gary did a few writing sessions, and he decided to do a writing session with Fraser, which was All, and so that was the first song that Gary had sort of written with Fraser, brought to us, and it was just, there was some sort of magic there. So then we kind of decided to go back in with him and see what else we could come up with. And the rest is history. And I know he's coming to the next 2 shows, so big exciting for him to see these live. And it was just it felt. And again, I don't know whether that's to do with getting a bit older and maybe finally honing your craft. I mean, you're never completely honing it, but it's. But I think he understood who we were very quickly, and kind of drew out our strengths and our sort of various ways of looking at recording and the way we work. So he was hugely instrumental in that.
And you've been with the band for a long time, almost the start. In fact, we'd be coming up on maybe or just past the 20th anniversary for you.
22 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I just doing anything for 22 years is pretty good. I mean, I've had an incredible time in this band, and it's brought me a lot of experiences and a great life, and I owe everything to it, really. My whole adult life. 44 coming, and that's. I think I was sort of maybe 23 when I first moved over to Glasgow to guys and stuff. So, I was certainly a young man, and I'm a very different young man than I was then.
With a kid.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's the responsibility changes for sure.
Everything in your orbit changes when you have a kid, don't you? And it's kind of nothing that you're ever warned about. And like you said, it maybe has an effect on you subconsciously, but it's nothing like immediate.
No, but it does. There's certain. I felt there was a lot that it shines a light on what is important, and and what we do and what I do, and sort of unshackles a lot of stuff as well. I thought, rather than things that you thought mattered, or were worrying about. You were like, you kind of realize, right, okay, this is, there was just, I guess, being an artist as well, a musician, there can be a sort of self-centered mindset about yourself in the studio and your bubble, and that changes, but it's in a weird way though. It makes me want to do it better and do it. I don't know. Maybe it's some sort of legacy thing or something. I don't know. I'll figure that out. But it does change.
Can you remember much about, so for example, when you joined the band, which would have been around about probably just before you made Final Straw? But can you remember much about? And can you talk to a little bit about making that album? Because obviously that was quite transformative for the band, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, absolutely. For all of us, and for me, it was my first real record. My previous band had sort of worked a record up, but it never got released and things like that. But I remember everything about that. Actually, it was pretty vivid memories of being in London, and me and Gary were sharing a room. Things like even like that, or like we did, and it was our first record with Jackknife, and he, a bit like I'm saying, Fraser, he was an amazing sort of catalyst for lots of stuff, and really pushed us, and brought out stuff that we maybe were, indie boys who were afraid to, push a big chorus, and he was like, "This is a big chorus, let it be," and let it be one, not let it be Beatles. But he
close enough.
Yeah, well, and it's it was a great time, and we made it in London, and I remember feeling that there was something happening, and look, a lot of that for me would have been down to pure excitement, so I was kind of just
changed the dynamic of the band, perhaps.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Yeah.
But of course it did. But there were 3 pieces at the time, and then the sort of the Jackknife sort of injection of he would bring so much music to us, and we were exchanging records a lot, and his sort of encyclopedic mind of everything that a lot of stuff we knew, but there was just introductions to different things and thinking outside our box, where you can kind of stuck in your ways, especially the difference from now to then is I think I was a little braver and reckless, but knew less, and I think I know a little more now, but I'm actually a little more cautious and or selective, but I think that's maybe the excitement and or even arrogance sometimes of youth, but it was a great time. I've obviously the anniversary that was there recently, and we had to delve through some of the demos which we put out on vinyl, and it was nice to kind of, we don't reflect a lot, but that was like I was instantly back there, listening to the demos, going, God, I can remember Gary bringing that in, or I can remember it being played, in a sort of dingy rehearsal room,
I think it's because for a lot of people it was a seminal album for you, but it just I'm speaking on behalf of every Snow Patrol fan, but it just played an important part in their life, and more in just I don't know, you just can't put it into words. It was an
people
album
do tell us that,
at the right time.
And I think you're right. We're lucky that happened. That there's people take it to heart. That's the best thing you can hope for, songs or an album. And I think it was, you're right, there was something happened and it landed at a time and an energy, and that's some things you can't create. You can't time that. That it just happens. But it certainly, we went on to Make Eyes Open, obviously, and Chasing Cars being a song that changed things even more. But I think it was actually Final Straw and Run that, without that, the next wouldn't have happened, obviously. So it did change so many things.
So you've got, if my maths is right, you're doing 90-minute set tonight. Mm-hmm. You're closing the Saturday stage. How do you squeeze in 20 years worth of albums into an hour and a half? And because Tim at the Charlatan said something quite interesting, that when I asked about the running order, he said that basically it's almost a fight to the death. Whoever throws the biggest strop gets their way in terms of the running order.
Okay,
how,
right.
How does it work with you guys?
We're pretty good actually. It's well, as I said, like it's when you've just made a record, I think we just want to play all the new records. But obviously new songs for people when they haven't heard them is at a festival is probably not the right place. But at the same, I think it's singles, and I think about a festival, it's about having fun and people are out to have a good time. So I think, we can throw in an odd album track or two, but I think with when you're doing your own shows or arena shows, you can maybe put some more obscure stuff, let's say. But I think it picks itself really. It's like, well, here's 12 things you have to play, and
can I just throw one? Are you talking about an album track?
Yeah, well,
Disaster Button.
Disaster Button. We haven't played that since that tour. I don't even know if we'd remember how to play it, but yeah, maybe next time. It's
sorry, I'm just so demanded. Like, what songs?
No, well, if
a request hour.
I certainly wouldn't be confident enough to just pluck it out of the bag.
Well, there's a lot.
But I'm glad you like it. But there'll be some stuff off that record. But it's I think it's Saturday night, and I think it's the singles.
Yeah, throughout the hits.
Throughout the hits.
Yeah. And obviously you're on tour next year, obviously, that follows the album. So how are you feeling about touring as well? Because that's...
Yeah, I mean, excited. I mean, it's... there's the UK tour, Europe tour, and then there's other shows happening over the summer and then America and hopefully Australia. I think there's stuff being talked about, so it's hopefully be a busy year. But look, honestly, touring, I mean, we love the gigs. I love being on stage.
Yeah.
I think maybe age is bringing up some sort of less patience for travel.
Feeling that.
Where you're just like, what? How did I do this? But but like by the time you hit the stage, that's all forgotten about, because that's what you're here for. So
I think if you could work on that album, you said about the time between albums being less. If I could ask that you maybe work on the next album during this tour, there's probably not going to be that 5-year gap.
No, I really hope it's not. And I know Gary's been working on songs already, and we seem to have had a sort of creativity injection by finishing this record, and I know that we're talking about going back on Fraser over the next year or so I hope it's 2 years time rather than 5.